Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Me
Woo!
too.
Woo.
Yeah.
Welcome, Love Posse. Welcome to today's beautiful, stimulating, inspiring, fun conversation, Black spirituality, a return to our earth-based roots. I couldn't wait. I already lit the candles. It's my practice to light candles, to bring in the element of fire, and to pay honor to the beloved God, Jah, Allah, whatever your faith is, the divine mother, whatever you your guidance is, whatever your faith is, that's what I do. And also to honor this space and honor my guests, honor humanity and Mother Earth and all sentient beings. So today I have two of my sisters with me, and I have been anticipating this conversation. I met both of these ladies when I let go of my prescribed life as an attorney and went on my spiritual journey. And I met Gabeta at, I believe, a Democratic fair, metaphysical fair, where we were doing metaphysical things. Anyway, and then I met Delia when I left Austin, Texas, and I was told to go to New Mexico, Tejedas, New Mexico, and I did a book signing in Santa
Santa
Fe
Fe.
at the Arc bookstore, and she came. And oh my goodness, this is amazing, my sister. So Gabeta Lyles is an LAC, which is a licensed acupuncturist, healing artist, sound therapist, and holistic life practitioner. Gabeta, as a transformational health practitioner, uses principles of Eastern medicine, sound therapy, indigenous herbalism, distal Reiki, alkaline food therapy, Qigong, Tai Chi, and meditative movement as an energetic system to harmonize mind, body, and spirit. She has 20 years of workshop facilitation, and we'll get to at the end if she's offering anything and where you can find her. My other sister here today, Delia St. Louis, educator, mentor, teacher, founder of Mindset on Purpose, right? Is an unshakable optimist dedicated to helping others feel like they most want to be. She mentioned in her bio that she's often asked, how do you always find the right thing to say to inspire others? And she said, for as long as she could remember, she's known that the gift of inspiration is the most valuable gift that she could offer anyone. Well, we're going to provide you with some inspiration tonight here from these ladies. And I like this that Delia said. She said she believes that you have the power, we have the power to grow what we give our attention to. And more importantly, we have the power to multiply what we put our emphasis on. Beautiful. And these ladies, oh my God, powerful, powerful sisters, Black spirituality. I'll begin with I grew up, father, Christian, mother, Black Muslim, okay, both. And I knew at 6, no, this is not me. Neither one fit, okay? Actually, I'm going to say some of it to me just seemed like some bullshit. We're in church. I'm looking at a community of African Americans, but Jesus is blonde haired, blue eyed. And then the thing with Jesus, with God punishing us, you know, this God of wrath. And then some things didn't make sense. The blonde haired, blue eyed Jesus, and then the Bible saying Jesus had hair of lamb's wool didn't make sense. Okay. The dogma didn't make sense. In terms of practicing Islam, that didn't make sense to me. You know, with the man in front and us sitting behind. And I'm like, no, this stuff didn't make sense. I had to find my own way. And then dogmas that have intermediaries, right? The information comes secondhand and third hand and fourth hand, and we're supposed to believe it. Black spirituality for me, or spirituality, was having and creating an intimate relationship with the divine. And the divine to me could be earth, nature. That's our nature. That's to me our roots. But I started off with that little description of my definition of Black spirituality, which is having an intimate relationship with spirit without the dogma, right? Without these rules and this angry God. I didn't believe any of that. I don't believe that. And with earth, we are connected. Our ancestors were connected. So we come from that connection with the earth, with music and song. Delia, what is Black spirituality for you?
Yeah, I, grew up in Grenada, a tiny little island in the Caribbean. And so I was lucky I had both. So we practiced Catholicism. We went to a church, and went to Catholic church, but we also had this other thing that we practice. I call it a thing because I don't know what name to call it, except it was this sort of joyful, kind of playful way of looking at life. And that was the one that resonated with me the most. So thank goodness I had both, because the Catholic stuff, I couldn't find my way with it. I just couldn't find my way. So there is this feeling of deep joy is that I came to know from practicing that way of life. And I'm not talking about just joy, like, haha, joy, which is also part of it. But there is a joy that it's something that it's just deep within your being. It's like when you see someone, right? Like in Grenada, you see someone and there's something luxurious about seeing another human being, that you say hello and you want to hug them and you want to just like have fun in their presence. And it's also that feeling too when you see someone dancing and you're sitting there looking at them and you feel the joy. It's
Right,
that
right.
kind of joy. So that's what Black spirituality means to me. It's joy, it's playfulness, it's the luxury of being in the presence of another human being and having fun.
Yes, yes, yes. I understand that. And that's why we, meaning us of the diaspora, we say when we greet each other, if if we are conscious enough to greet each other, hey brother, hey sister, right? The joy. We see the face of the divine in the other, right? Right? Ubuntu. I am because we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. Gabeta, before you start, I have to let Ralph out or he's going to keep whining. Our fur babies. Hey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, Sister Gabea.
Yeah. Yeah. My background came out of the Pentecostal church. And so it was always interesting because I had around the same age you're talking, around 6. I remember being in Sunday school and one of my cousins, the age of my parents, was teaching the class. And I asked her, I said, is this the only way to get to heaven?
Mm.
And she thought about it and she was like, no, there are, there are lots of ways to go. I was like, good. Because it did not fit me either. I was like, there's got to be another way. Because we were doing, and for folks who voted, great, but we were doing Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday choir rehearsal, like church and then, choir rehearsal. And Sunday would be Sunday school, the afternoon program, and then the evening program. So even as a kid, I felt exhausted. I would sing in the choir, and that was the best part for me, was the music. Yep. So I love the music. I love singing in the choir. Even watching people speak in tongues, I was fascinated with like that part of spirit world. Yeah. And wanted to know like what possessed people to that joy that they're jumping and they're shouting. And then I remember as a kid, I grew up with my great grandmother. So we would go to the prayer service on Tuesdays and everyone would be dressed in white. And I thought it was like the most beautiful thing. And they would sit, but they would also spend most of the time on their knees praying and moaning. And as a kid, I would see visions. I would be transformed into a field and I would be running, even though I was sitting there on my knees. And I never had told, like, it only recently did I tell someone that I was having these visions, even as a child. And in my family, we grew up in the country, so we lived very close to the earth. And I was always being the happiest being close to the earth and having a relationship with animals and talking to plants. And I would try to make my own medicine, even as a child. And so, so for me, that was my sanctuary. Being up in my willow tree was my sanctuary. And so I hated the donning, like putting, the hair, the dresses, the Sunday, the patent leather shoes, my flat feet, I just wanted to be on the earth.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was always looking for something that would connect me to that and that would connect me. And I loved singing gospel because I felt like that soulfulness that you would feel, the collective song that you would hear. For me, those were the divine parts of religion, but for me, it also didn't fit my life. And even as a kid, and I remember being a tormented teenager, like I did not want to go. By the time I was there, I would cry. My mother just like did not understand it because it was her world. She was a missionary and my dad was a deacon and she had a lot of clout. And I also realized there was a lot of, just recently, a lot of narcissism attached to religion and like where you were in the sort of the pecking order. And she loved it and got off of it, and I would just be like in church going, some of this is cool, but some of this is so wrong. And some of it was so anti, And so I think for me, those were the things that made me begin to search for other things. Mm-hmm. And so my entrance was dipping into the music, African music. And so I played the djembe was where I started. And then even having access to that instrument, was difficult, at the time, like, as a woman. And so, but then when I started to play, I would have those same feelings that I would have when I was inspired, at church. And I was like, what is this? Yeah. And so feeling the collective energy of drums come up together and hearing the song and the call and the response was very similar. And then just like praying as, a kid and visualizing things that started happening to me with the drumming. Yeah. And so that went in from drumming to dance. And I get way off, but then doing, West African dance for many years and, and then going into Afro-Haitian dance and Afro-Cuban dance and learning about all the deities there and like dancing Oya and then feeling Oya in my body was like, whoa, or playing and feeling Shango spirit come through. And so I had already, experienced things, but there was like all these different names and ways to attach to that. And so for what fit, great. What didn't fit, I let those things go. And, I've never initiated into any particular religion. I think I've found my own way through sound and through dance, through music to connect with spirituality. And so that's where I come to it with.
Yeah. Yeah. You said so many things that I resonate with. One, I love the music also. That's when I felt most
Yeah.
a part of the community with the music, because it's so emotional and deep, and it takes you to its vibration. You see, it's something higher than us that we get to feel the divine through the music and the
Mhm.
and the dance. And I love you said, oh yeah, I was in graduate school, and one of my mentors, uh, we didn't call our professors, we called them mentors, but one of our mentors said, you have Oya energy. And I'm like, who's that? And
Mhm.
and I looked her up, and I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Right? Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Oh yeah. And it's so
Yeah.
funny, someone else told me that. But what's so funny, I was doing standing, I went to a park and I was trying out standing meditation. And as I was doing standing meditation, I was transported someplace else where I was like this warrior, and I was speaking this other language. And so
Mm.
I had no idea what I was speaking. And I told my mentor, and she said, that's that, or you are a warrior. You destroy stuff, and and it rebuilds. But she said, yeah, you were probably speaking your native tongue. I'm like, this is crazy. This is just crazy
Mm.
awesome. But
Yeah.
what I love is that the connection, you asked that question, can we get to heaven, or through, is this the only way? But
Mhm.
religion has a tendency to believe that whatever that religion is, that their religion is the only way.
Mm.
And to me personally, that is not God of God, because we all know there's more than one way, right?
Yes.
And it's that the Buddha said, which I believe, that experience is the greatest teacher, not some book, not someone standing up there pontificating, but
Mhm.
experience. And that's how I got into it. Because when I said no, no, first it was, I had this anger, and I was always fighting the Almighty God. And I'm like,
Mm.
no, God is going to tell me what to do and punish me because I want to do this. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense anyway. So I always had until 48 when I
Mhm.
said, okay, enough is enough. Let's go. Okay, because I'm tired of you. And then a friend of mine told me, she said her mother told her this story, and in the story, God was a woman. And
Mhm.
she was in this cabin in the woods with herbs and butterflies and birds flying around, and she was gentle. Then I got it. I said, yes, yes, yes. The roots, the earth, Grenada, because our ancestors, and Delia, I want you to speak to this because we talked about this. We were talking about, in Grenada, and our ancestors, they always tilled the soil.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, a big part of my life. We used to joke that we would go to the store just to get salt because we literally had everything else. Um, you know, every meal was something we pulled up from the ground or we picked from a tree. You know, yeah, we had all kinds of animals, and we would get, fish and yeah, that was how we lived. And sometimes I laugh because, I'm here in the US and I see certain, foods and stuff, and I always think, would my grandmother recognize this as food? Like that's how I'm like, would she recognize this as food? And if the answer is no, like okay, then we're not eating it. But yeah, yeah, being connected in that way, right? And also, so that's like a whole process in itself, right? It's not even just the food or the animals, it's aligning with astrological stuff, because I remember my grandfather, how he planted certain things depended on where the moon was.
Yeah.
Or, if he needed to do something with an animal, to breed an animal, it all depended on what was happening astrologically. And so that's a whole, process of wholeness and one with everything that's around you. It's sort of like you're the,
Mm.
as an individual, you're the almost like the seed or the speck in the midst of all of that, right? And you're participating in all of it. It's a pretty incredible thing because it lends itself to so much more, right? It's like there is a feeling of ease that you get from living that way. There's a feeling of there's a trust that you come to have. For the longest while, I kept wondering, because I have my own two kids and I've been wanting to give them that sense of security I always felt within myself.
Mm.
And for the longest while, I kept asking, like, what is that? What is that thing where I feel so secure within myself, no matter what's going on? Literally, there could be a tornado, swarming around me. And I always felt ease. And so, yeah, I started asking the question, and it came to me that it had to do with connections with things that were of nature, being aware that I'm not looking to another human being for my sense of well-being. I'm not looking to anything outside of myself, but to find the elements in nature and how that connects with me and how my emotions fit in with all that. It was all about me. It was like me, and then let that go out, right? It's like, fill up your cup before you can give to anybody else.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So that's how it came to me. And so I knew I needed to teach my kids or show them how they can use, their way of showing up in the world to feel that kind of groundedness, that sort of, it's like a deep satisfaction without anything. Like there's no food, there's no, TV show, there's no, person telling you it's okay, but it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gabeda, yeah. Please speak to that, our connection with the earth and oh, yeah. I'm excited. Yeah.
I know, it's just amazing. Yeah, no, I would be a different person had I not had that solace, right? That go off into the woods, that climb those trees and be with nature and just listen. And for me it was interesting because I had read the work of Sambufu Somé before she transitioned. And one of the things that she talks about is you have to understand why you were born to the family that you were born to. And I was, oh my goodness, I have to unpack that. And then I came to that. It was like my family's connected to the land. I needed that connection to land to become who I was. And so, and I never met, of course, my great grandfather, but he was the one who planted the apple tree. He was the one that put grapes out there and had blackberries and all these treasures for us to find as kids. And so I was always thankful of knowing him in that way. And so his energy was there. And it was interesting because everything was always about the earth, even my toy chest. And one day my mother went in my room and screamed. And it was because in my toy chest, I had snakes and frogs and crickets and, and mantis. And so those were like my people and my, and then I realized they ate each other, so I was like, oh, I got to undo this. And so I was always bringing something wounded home, trying to heal it. And so, and my father hated it. He was like, here she come again with something, And so for me, that was when I was the most free and at ease, was with earth. And so I know that that was why I was born to my family. And then when I looked up my birth sign in Ghanaian cosmology, I'm an earth sign. So then it all made sense. And I was like, okay. And then the name Gabeta that came to me means earth medicine. And the person who gave me that name, who told me my name, I'll put it that way, didn't know that I was into healing and using herbs and acupuncture and all this other stuff. And so then it was like the name went from earth medicine. And then another person was like, your name also means the carrier of creation. And then that person was like, but it also means the king's drum. And I've been drumming for over 20 years. And so it all made sense. And so it was like a coming home. And then having that earth name also be connected to sound therapy. I was in taking sound therapy certification in California, and they put you on the sound table so you can feel the vibrations. And my soul note is a G. And I was like, okay. And so they put me back on the table, and the other notes spelled Gabeta. And I was like, okay, it's becoming clear that that is the name that I'm supposed to carry.
Yeah.
And so, but just that beautiful connection back to earth and everything that earth provides. The drum is the wood, the skin is goat, it's still earth. And so, and it's very healing. And so, yeah, I would be a different person. My great grandmother who helped raise us was a sharecropper. And so, so she knew plenty about growing and agriculture. And so we also each had our gardens, and we had a communal family garden, and we grew up in rows, we were all in rows connected across from the river. So we would also fish. And so, so yeah, being that close to the earth has given me tools that I know that there are plenty of folks who don't have, or lessons about life, or even the circle of life, things dying, losing animals, or trying to nurse, kittens back to health that didn't make it. So even then I was getting all these lessons about healing and what it takes, and that sort of commitment and dedication and love, right, for that, and love for the land, and love for the earth, for what it provides. And so I am very grateful for that.
Right. Definitely. I think we all are. And that's one of the reasons for me, one of the reasons, many reasons I believe that as a community, we our roots, earth, that we are off kilter. We're not on our path. And because we are not on our path, there's a multitude of signs. One, that we're not, our health, our financial situation, our place in this world, the way we treat each other, and we'll get to that, because we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and Black people don't know how to treat each other. They don't know that Black Lives Matter, right? So that's another part of this. But Delia, when we were talking, and we were talking about the earth and the land, and maybe some reasons why we stop tilling the soil or stop going to nature. And I remember us talking about, because there may be a connection with our ancestors' experience with slavery, because we do carry those experiences with us in our cellular memory.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fascinating piece, huh? The whole concept of, that being connected to the earth and growing food, you know, ended up being an unpleasant thing for a lot of people because, yeah, because of slavery, and, because we were so, that was the work. That was the work that slaves did. And so it became this sort of negative thing. And, I see how it makes sense. It all makes sense. I'm saying at this point now, we know what that is, so let's, let that go and return to, like what makes us feel whole, you know, and not as a pushing against or pushing back or anything like that. We're doing it because it feels damn good. It
Yeah.
feels good to us, right? It's like, and not everybody's going to be, you know, is going to want to do that or have that kind of connection in that way, but to have some reverence, you know, like, and to feel the luxury of that, you know, to be able to step out and, you know, grab a piece of food that you grew, you know, or that your neighbor grew. But I think we must return to the reverence of food, you know, because it's I really do believe it's one of the it's one of the links. It's almost like it's one of the golden thread, you know, like you're looking for, you know, something that's going to make life, you know, feel good or that's going to enhance your life. And I believe food is one of those things. It's, yeah.
And growing your own food
Growing your own food.
is
Yeah.
extremely powerful and revolutionary. And I'm gonna let Gabeta talk on this. It's also one of the signs that we are not in alignment with our faith, with the divine, is our health and the food. I know Gabeta does, I think, some food therapy, but the food I saw the documentary Invisible Vegan. You don't have to be vegan. I'm not selling vegan, but this in the video, they mentioned something that I didn't know. And again, I saw this documentary because someone, my best friend who happens to be white, who's like, why don't black people, you guys don't do this and you have so much power, blah, blah, blah. And she says, so she said, you got to watch this film. You know about soul food? I'm like, no, I just know chicken and collard greens and blah, blah. This is what the food that the slave masters gave our ancestors, soul food. But in this documentary, The Invisible Vegan, which was written and produced by an African American woman, they talk about soul food and how it actually was a political move because back then African American leaders wanted to give us Black communities some context and culture. So they said, we Black people have soul food, you know, like that's all we're worth. But that stuff is not soul food. And I said, food for the soul. And we know that because we have obesity, high blood pressure, we have heart disease, right? So many. So Gabeta, come on, sister, bring it on.
No, I all day, like really. I mean, I look at the body as, and you're right. I mean, the big thing is that like we are so deficient in nutrients. And so folks don't even have the energy for what they need to do because they're not intaking, you know, the right sort of foods. But like I see foods as energy, right? Because, you know, what do you need to grow it? You got to have the sun. And that's the most energetic being in our constellation, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, for me, it's like, you got to have the right foods. We know that the foods that you get in grocery stores are toxic. I remember one day walking in the store and literally tearing up because I realized that only 10% of the food in a grocery store is actually food, right? So when you take out, once you say, okay, I'm only going to drink natural spring water, once you say I'm only going to eat foods that have seeds in them, right? That's like half of your produce section gone already, right? And then if you get in there and you say, okay, I'm only going to eat, you know, ancient grains. I'm only going to eat the quinoa, the amaranth, right? The wild rice, right? And so once you start saying, this is how I want to be, you know, for me, I was lucky. I stumbled on Dr. Sebi's work and Ma'a Bowman's work. And so often people are like, oh yeah, you know, but what I realized is that they were spot on. They were way, you know, ahead of their time in what people, but even now people aren't ready to accept it because food is addictive. That sweetness, that greasy, that cheesy, that oily, all of the things that clog our systems up, slow us down, make us stagnant, that is what we have adapted to eating. But once you take those things out and you start eating fresh, live things, meaning getting the darkest lettuces you can find, eating foods that were not genetically modified. And you'd be surprised. The yams, the carrots, spinach, all those things are genetically modified.
Right.
Once you start eating foods that are alkaline, energetic, your vibration and your energy changes. You begin to have so much clarity. It's just amazing. I had the experience when I was doing like straight vegan, alkaline, energetic, original foods for a year and a half. My body was vibrating so high, I could literally reach for something in the grocery store and feel whether or not it was a live food. I had a peach that was like literally vibrating in my hand. So it was like my body was beginning to talk to produce and being like, like Delia was talking about, is this real food? And so my body was already like, yeah, this is what's real and this is what's not. And so I didn't have to check the list because a part of me was already vibrating with that. But my own natural vibration was through the roof. And so even my energetic work sparked up. I had so much clarity. My clairvoyance picked up as well. So it was interesting to see what was happening to me when I was starting to get the right things in me. And then in turn, being able to add that to my practice. Briefly, I had someone who had diabetes and we used herbs and did all this stuff. The numbers were coming down and I was like, what are we missing? And it was the food. We talked about the food, and they were doing pretty good. I was like, no, let's just tighten up the food. Let's take out everything in your diet that's mucus forming.
Right.
The glaucoma went away in 3 weeks. She didn't have to have an eye operation. It's amazing. So once you say food is like the most toxic thing we have that we're ingesting daily. So it's so important to clean it up. And it's hard to get people to give up certain things. They want their, I want my chicken fried steak, with extra gravy, please, And so it's hard to get people to like say, to dial that up and say, and as you change, as you begin to meditate, as you grow your own spiritual practice, food will make you sick because your vibration is very different than
Right.
what you're inputting. So if you don't switch that up and so a lot of people have health crises as they start getting more and more into their spirituality. And it's because their vibration has changed and they haven't changed the food that they ingest to match that or to take it further.
Yeah, food is consciousness.
Yes.
It's actually consciousness. Yeah, because I became vegan. When I became vegan, I initially did a 30-day raw vegan diet.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my consciousness, like my vibration was so high. I'd go outside and I could literally hear the earth and the sun. And I'm like, what is this? I can hear it. I could hear stuff. Literally, I could hear trees talking to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say that. People say I'm kooky, but I heard the trees talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah. The earth is alive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, really? Yeah. Like, how have we forgotten that? Right. And it's because, again, you touched on Gabeda, you touched on like the frequency and the vibration of food, which is something I think a lot of people don't really think about, right? Like, we're all energy. We live in an energetic realm and everything has its own energy. Mm-hmm. And if whatever that relationship is that we have with that thing, that's what we get out of that thing, right? So if we're eating that thing because whatever, the relationship is that we have with it, we're growing more of that, right? And it goes both ways. It goes both ways, whether it's for, the not so good or for the good.
Yeah.
Yeah, both sides grow depending on the relationship that you have with it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Most definitely. So
Yeah.
how do we return to our roots? And with that, what some suggestions, but what do you see, observe? I'm sure we all see the same thing, but it needs to be said. What do we see that is not in alignment as community? I spoke to one earlier, which is so many times I see us and us looks the other way, you know, and especially in circles where there are uh, Europeans, white people, you know, Gabeta, you're from, well, not from Austin, but we lived in Austin together, and we go to Wheatsville, which is this co-op, you know, for the hippie, cool, you know, European. But I was a member there, and I would see other Black people, and I'd say, hey, sister, hey, brother, whatever, and I'm invisible. I'm like, no, you know, you see me, you see this brown skin, you know that. And it's kind of like, why are you here? It can only be one of us.
Right.
See, we're still dealing with that narrative. It can only be one of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we talk about Black Lives Matter. Okay, in our community, we still have issue with color, light, dark, hair, right? You know, we still have these issues, black male female relationships, you know, the push and pull for power, and we have this still.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's trauma though. It's all trauma.
Yeah.
It's all trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
get it, why, how we got here. You know, I totally get it. I think when I was much younger, when I first came to the US, I was like, what's wrong? Like, what is going on here? Like, like, where is the joy? What is all this like pitting against each other? I didn't get it, but I get it now. I get it. I understand how we've gotten here living in the US. I totally understand how we got here. However, I think now that we know how we got here, let's do something about it. It's just, it's just time. It's just time, right? Like we've lost this reverence for each other. You know, it's like yeah, it's one of the things that I probably miss the most about living in Grenada is that moment where you come into someone's physical awareness, like somebody's aware of you standing there or they see you coming and they can't wait to say hello or say hi, or it's the thing I miss the most. I mean, I'm granted I do it all the time here, and people think I'm crazy. When I
Mhm.
first got to New York, I remember my partner at the time had said, people are going to think you're crazy, because I would walk into the bus in the mornings and I would say, good morning. I would walk on the train, I go to the train, I would say, good morning. I look back now and I'm like, oh gosh, a little embarrassing. But to see other humans and to not like just revel in that experience, like what?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you said something about you and your kids and that confidence that you had. When you were confident in who you are and your history, your ancestors, you see a beautiful brother, sister, you see another human being, right? Doesn't have to be a person of color, and you say hello. When we first met, I mean, we spoke. You and I, and also Gabeta and I. It wasn't
Mhm.
this. I don't see you. I don't see.
I get it. I'm laughing because I'm like, I so get it though. I so get it. Oh, the hurt, right? The trauma, the fear of, more than one of us in a group,
Right.
that was considered dangerous,
Oh,
and so I
yeah.
get it. I get it. I just think, at this point, let's just let's just luxuriate in each other, like, what else is there to do? you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Gabeta, what do you think about all this?
It's a tough, I mean, it's a tough one that I'm going, part of it is that right now I'm going through this yoga training that's trauma informed, right?
Yeah.
And so like just visiting all these issues, it has just been, my eyes were already open, but just a deeper level of eye opening and realizing like some people are just sitting in their stuff so deep, they don't know how to come out of it.
Yeah.
They don't have the skills to unravel it.
Yeah.
And to work with things that have happened to them or that have happened to them ancestrally. Like they don't know like to light a candle or to make an offering or to speak to them for help even, and so there's so many parts, and I hear you, Delia, totally come up out of it. And it's not, I'm not making excuses, but it's like when I see, even when I see clients, when I see people that are grappling with the physical, it's always spiritual, it's always emotional. And there's always some sort of layer of trauma. I mean, you could talk about birth trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about lack and financial insecurity, food insecurity, housing insecurity. Like for a lot of people, not a lot, not all, but for many people, that's still their reality based on that ancestryhood, based on that starting out from nothing, being, and some of us who being uneducated, but some of us who bought into the education.
Right.
Also, for me, I realized that's a myth. That doesn't necessarily even the ground, So people like, how many degrees you got? Too many. As my mother said, you got too many degrees to be poor. And so it's the reality and how you cope with that. So if you can find the humor in it, right? If you can find community that's supportive and loving, it's like you can make your way out of that. But I think for many people, it's like, you have the fear of folks going off and leaving you behind.
Yeah.
You have people sabotaging each other because of that fear.
Yeah.
And that sabotage can be anything from I'm picking you up late for a job interview to, hey, why don't you try this crack or whatever, And so there are different things that we do out of what I usually see as anger, fear, sadness, and grief. Those are the three emotions that I work with the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and often when people are in that, they don't know how to come out of it.
Yeah.
And you're not even talking about the spiritual stuff, right? You're not even talking about the people who have attachments on them. Right. So people who, and I see it all the time, the super dark circles, the cheeks, sucked in. That's not because they didn't have enough to eat. It's like they have an entity that's riding them. Right. And if you don't know you have that, or if you don't have somebody who's going to clear that for you, you could spend a lifetime with those demons on your back. And that's like real talk. And so there's so many different levels of reality that people are living in. There's folks with I used to go into the high schools, Black high schools in Austin, and see the hopelessness where people didn't even want to, I was representing a community college. People didn't even want to come up to the table to get an application because they'd be laughed at because they were trying. Right. You're smart enough, you can't. And then they would say, you're not smart enough. You ain't going to college. Who do you think you are? That's that holding on to that. And then like, where is the hope? Right. It's also like, where is the joy? Right. When there's no hope, there's little joy.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's like, it's hard to see it. And even when you come out of it, for me, sometimes I have that guilt that I'm, I have a painting that says almost free over here. And so it's like, I'm now free, right? But I just kept getting on that edge of being almost free from all that stuff so that I could experience the joy and that I could share that and so that I could teach that. But what I find is often folks are more comfortable with being uncomfortable than thriving. And so I read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And for me, that's when I started understanding this upper limit that he explains. Like, you have this limit of your comfort level with joy and happiness. And once you bump up against that, you will sabotage yourself to be in the in the level that you feel most comfortable with. And so I started looking at ways that I was doing that in my life. And I started looking at his hidden barriers, fear of outshining. And, there's like 5 of them. And so once I got those under control, I could see my own patterns that were bringing me down. And so then I started to create my own like manifestations through, mantras, self, affirmation, listening to myself talk. And what do I say that's, like you hear people say, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm this or that. It's like you're like you talked about it, you're recreating that. Yeah. And so that way that we speak about ourselves and the way that we speak even ourselves into being is so important. And so that's all a part of uplifting. And if you don't have people around you who are doing that and you don't learn how to do that yourself, you're kind of stuck, unless you stumble across, somebody online or something that you resonate with that's a higher frequency than what you're experiencing around you. But yeah, my hope is that, folks are finding ways to connect themselves in spirit.
Yeah, definitely. And being, you mentioned the trauma. One of, and I'm pretty sure you both aware, but I met you at the time when I was actually homeless. I may not have looked homeless, but I was homeless at the time. And part of that, because it had many parts, but part of that was I always felt guilty and ashamed because I was Black and educated, because I made money. I had a number of people in my family tell me, girl, you lost your ghetto card. And so I wanted to be so a part of the Black community.
Yeah.
Being in high school, being called white girl by my Black sisters, being called white girl. And that was traumatic for me. It stayed with me. So I created, because we create our reality, I created homelessness in part because in my egoic mind, it was distorted, said, oh, if we are poor, then we are Black. We fit into the community, right? And that's how you can get your ghetto card back. That's what the egoic mind does when it's unconscious, utter nonsense. So I in turn created my lack, my poverty, so that I wouldn't be ashamed of having money, of being prosperous, of being who the divine created me to be. So I had to, like you said, I wanted to fit in. So I had to come down here, whatever, lose everything to fit in, give it away or whatever, release it so I could fit in. So I'm like, yeah, I'm Black. I'm Black because we tell each other what Black is. Oh, you're only Black if you're this, or you're only Black if you're that. And I fell into that. That was part of my trauma. And then having my own family tell me, girl, you ain't Black. You lost your ghetto card. Look at you. And so that was part of it. And I had to come out of that. And like you, in growing and expanding and getting more into my spirituality and realizing that Black is a political term. And if you identify with that, oh yeah, you pretty much effed up. Okay.
Yeah.
So I learned not to identify. I learned that is just, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience in the body of a female who also is experiencing my homosexuality, also experiencing being what humans have termed and we've all subscribed to as African American. So these are only descriptors in this earth plane. Other than that, I'm just a spiritual being. We all are. We've just decided to come back and play this role. So once I got to that, I'm like, this is a role. I don't identify with that, and are those things that bad or whatever. No, I'm a spiritual being. I understand in this human realm, I have brown skin, I'm gay, whatever it is, but I'm playing a role and I'm making it up as I go along. So I can create a horror flick, or I can create this beautiful, earth-based, beautiful, joy-filled drama. Actually, it's a little bit of horror, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of romanticism. I'm experiencing it all, right? But it all started with somebody telling me what is Black, and I'm not it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we also, you're right. And there's like this agreement that people make, right? Yeah. And when you try to break out of that agreement, that something happens. And yeah. Even the foundation of your identity of who am I? Even on the spiritual walk, who am I?
Yeah.
And why am I hearing this? Why am I seeing this? Why am I experiencing this? And so it's that identity is that formation. A lot of it is trauma bonding, right? Mm-hmm. And you identify so much with that. Even the shootings, right? At some point I realized with all the Black deaths that I wasn't responding to it the way other people were.
Yes.
Because I had figured out how to find my center.
Yes.
And folks who didn't have a center to come home to were devastated with every single death and re-traumatized again and again and again, to the point where they could not function and get out in the world, taking mental health days because of it. And I'm not minimizing it at all.
Yes.
But if you don't have a way to cope with this world in this skin, yes. Then for some people, it's life-shattering.
Yeah. It literally is about really building a different kind of relationship with who we think we are,
yes.
And also everything else. That's literally what I teach the kids, it's like growing and building a relationship with yourself and everything outside of yourself. And how you build that relationship is determined by what you think, feel, and speak about yourself and everything you're experiencing in the world. Because whatever that relationship is you have with those things, creates more of that. Yes. And so, I hear you. I could see how people were just losing themselves in all of it. When the truth is, when we lose ourselves in all of it, really, we have nothing to give. When you're sort of just being swayed by every little thing, then you're literally just, sort of empty, and there's nothing to give. So if for nothing else, for us to give back to humanity and to give back to this outfit that is our human self, we have to grow a different kind of relationship with ourselves and the world around us.
Yes.
True.
And the truth is we are Black folks, I'm gonna just say it.
Yeah.
Black folks are magnificent beings.
Right?
Yeah.
So much light, magic, joy, song, dance, movement, creativity, like all of it brilliant. Yeah. So I understand why folks feel like it must be oppressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I understand that, but we have to continue to shine.
And also too, right? It's that piece of like why we chose to come back into this life experience,
right,
in this form, in this outfit. Like ask our little spirits, like, why did I choose to come back as
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know why?
Yeah, you know why. And I've asked, and I know why. And I'm like, yeah, it all makes sense.
Freaking sense.
And on top of that, I started off, I used to read Eckhart Tolle a lot and listen to him a lot. And he was talking about these identifiers. He said people of color, and he said gay people. He said those people have, I want to say this correctly, but because of those identifiers or descriptors, they will have a lot of challenges, which will cause more, not more awareness, but will are more likely to become aware faster than others because there always will be picked on or mistreated. So they will have to, they came back because they wanted to learn greater lessons as outliers, as people that society deems not normal or a problem.
Interesting.
So because we're always, think about it, if you're standing up and people are always throwing tomatoes at you, you have to go to spirituality. You have to go to something greater than yourself, or else you're either going to commit suicide or live your life stuck. You have to tap into your spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where all the juice is, really. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, really, this is our spirituality, our center, that thing that we cannot see and define, but we feel. That's where all the juice is. This physical stuff, this is all news. This is like gum that the flavor has been chewed up.
Definitely.
Right? So, yeah, I think we need to just tap into the juice.
So, and there's definitely that, yes. And if I could to just go back for a second, Tiffany, to what you said. So I see it, I do understand the logic behind that. But one of the things that I think about in color is like color vibrates high.
Yes.
And I think we have a natural high vibrancy when we come into this realm.
Yes.
To the point where we have to be Black.
Yes.
What else is going to hold that energy? This is how I look at it.
Yes.
What else is going to hold that energy? And then when you talk about queerness, I think of Simone Fu's work. And she talks about people who are homosexuals, gatekeepers, because they know their natural born sexuality, right? The socialization around that, but they also know this other. And so that they are gatekeepers that understand the other two genders, right? As if these are the third, right? And so for her, those are the spiritual beings who come into the fold of community in order to balance it out.
Right.
And so I'd never thought about it in that particular way. And then I thought about in South Africa, there's a tribe of women who are all queer, and they have been initiated as healers. And one of the criteria for getting in is actually that.
Yeah.
And so, and like so what Sambufu is saying is like, they understand the community in a different way. Right. And more than not, they are the mediators, right? They're the ones who can bring a family back together because they know what it takes in order to do that. And because they don't fit in necessarily in a family structure, they bond with community in a more general way, instead of just bonding to a nuclear family in that particular way. So anyway, to me, there are, yes, a lot of reasons why we become who we become.
Yeah.
And I think it was that not fitting in, you know, of being queer in my own family, and then being like, whoa, we don't do that. We're Pentecostal.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're outside of that.
Yeah.
But for my life, that was the most beautiful thing that could have happened, because that set me out to search for family. That gave me the freedom to claim a drum community as my family that took me deeper into spirituality.
Yes.
That helped me like identify who were the real people who could accept all of me, right? Until I learned that it doesn't matter what people think.
Yeah.
Like I am, if I'm living a life where I continue to seek validation from other people, then I'm not centered, because that energy is going outward instead of focusing in on what I need to do for me, how I need to be for me, how I need to live for me, and how I'm going to be in that world. And that is the almost free, right? And so once I fully accept myself, that's truly freedom, because then you get to be whoever you are in its most authentic way.
Yeah.
And there's no better way to shine, right?
Right.
So true.
Yeah.
So
True. Yeah. I want to go back to Eckhart, because you said something that made me think of putting this in context about what he was talking about, because he was being asked what is the fastest way to become conscious. And they were talking about relationships, that if you are partnered in a relationship, one, as opposed to being single, that's the fastest. And that's only because you have that person every day mirroring your stuff. So he was saying that people of color and women and gay people, again, they, in this realm, they are the suppressed. And I decided, I agreed to come back as woman,
right.
oppressed, gay, oppressed, African American, oppressed. So in short, but anyways, those are the warriors. The short ones are the warriors. That's right. So constantly being bombarded with mirrors, people do. So you have to, with all that, you have to go within, always within. You can't allow the external world to tell you who you are. You have to define who you are. And the Black community have allowed their oppressors, their colonizers, to define who they are. And another one of the problems. We are still living someone else's narrative of us, someone else's story about us. And we have to let it go.
Yeah. As long as we're white aspiring, it's like, how do you come back to you? How do you come back to your center? How do you see your value, your divineness, your beauty? I'm not saying I'm not anti-white, but it's like, I'm also not, I've learned not to be white aspiring.
Yeah.
Because that discounts who I am.
Yeah.
And so I have to figure out my own divineness and how I'm going to be out in the world and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And that's the work.
That's the work.
That's part of the trauma too. We're talking about trauma because I remember, growing up, and you guys, I want you to speak to this, but here in America, in the United States, the treatment of African Americans is just horrid all my life. And I remember, I'm like, who would want to be Black? So I have this conflict within myself, wanting the Black community to accept me, and then also wanting the white community to accept me. I wrote an article about it, not white or Black enough, right? So you have this battle within that you have to resolve, because in my immature mind as a child, seeing, if you're Black, this is what happens to you. I don't want to be this. Until I learned, grew up, matured, become a full-fledged spiritual human being, that's part of the game. That's the narrative. That's part of the programming. You don't have to, don't click the subscribe button.
Right?
Don't subscribe.
Don't like and don't subscribe. That should be on a t-shirt. Don't like and don't subscribe. So true though. It's like really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And then also, I want you to speak to this, but I bring this in so you can talk to about too. And then also the trauma of being in an industry lawyer where, and in Texas, where you are surrounded by people, their culture is racist, and so to fit in, you have to deny your blackness, okay? Which I believed, oh, because I saw how judges would treat other Black people. My ex-husband, they would treat him because he was like, you know, I'm a warrior. I'm gonna tell you you're a racist to your face, and then your money's tied into that. So when I was immature, unconscious, and fear-based, I'm like, okay, I can't show my sapphire. They can't see my sapphire energy. I have to hide that because if I don't, they're going to put me in the category here, one of those militant Black women, right? That's all the stuff we have to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge, girl. That it's burdensome too. Like just listening to you, and I'm like, whoa, that's like that's a lot to carry around, you know? Like, yeah, but it all makes sense, right? It all makes sense. I mean, I think about, like growing up in Grenada, right? So slaves, how did they get to the Caribbean? Like Black people got to the Caribbean through slavery also. Like there was slavery in the Caribbean. However, one, it didn't last as long as it did here in the US. And, so the Caribbean people like to tell the story that, look, like a bunch of like white men, they bought the slaves to the Caribbean, and, we were like so strong and virile that we could take the heat because we came from Africa and we knew heat. And these wimpy guys, they couldn't take it, they had to leave. So they left, and they left the island to us. Granted, there was some horrible things I'm sure that happened, but people are like, we kicked them out. They really couldn't take the heat. They left, right? That's the narrative. And so it's like, it's this. So I say this to sort of give you some context to like where I come from with being Black, right? It's like I just move through the world. It's like take it or leave it. I'm like, I know I come from a people that are filled with joy. They're filled with like spirit nourishment, like they really don't really care like who's doing what, and so that, and I don't know if that was just sort of my family or if it was, but I think probably most of, I don't know, I'll speak for my family. That's what I kind of grew up with. So I have to tell you, I don't have the burden of being Black. It's not a burden for me. It's actually a very, it's a very sort of satisfying, nourishing energy to me. It's yeah, that's my feeling with it. Yeah. I'm becoming, like moving through my life, and I have a partner who's a woman now. Like all those things are kind of like my life just sort of evolved into it. There was no, I didn't feel like that was different than anything that had happened before. I just kind of, it was like, oh, I'm in love with a person that happened to be a woman. And so I have a friend who asked me, she was like, how was that for you, like transitioning to this other life of, like being with a woman? And I was like, there was no transition, really. Like I couldn't answer her because I had no kind of feelings with that. So, I just sort of move through the space of this energy ball that we call Earth, and I find joy and satisfaction in most of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I am almost there. I'm to the point where I just find comedy in it. Like like oppress folk. I'm like, it's kind of funny. It's like, how long is that gonna last?
Yeah.
And how long are people gonna buy into it? And I remember when I learned the word hegemony, and I was like, oh, if I stop participating in my own oppression, then I'm no longer oppressed, right?
Right.
In my mind, and then the way I move through the world.
Right.
And that started to deconstruct stuff, you know, and I was looking at Freudian models and all this stuff and like how to read the world. And I was already doing that. And I think for me, as far as like Tiffany, you're talking about life and negotiating spaces. And I think that for me, it has switched up in a way that I understand me. I understand my boldness. I understand what I know. And I understand even the, you know, spiritual realities that I function in. And I can have pretty much anything I want if I switch this mindset. Yeah. And so it's like, once you like put the key in that lock and you unchain yourself, yep, then the possibilities are endless.
Endless.
You know, and so, you know, so for me, it was like, I got to a point where I had to speak my truth. And that's when I got in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. Because I began to get bolder and bolder. I went from being voiceless to get bolder and bolder in my speech. And I would just be sitting in the last job. They just, you know, they were either going to fire me or I had to quit, because not only was I seeing what was in the room and reading the room, I was reading people and reading what they were thinking and getting all these messages. And I was just calling people on stuff and they would be shocked because nobody knew that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, this is not fair. This is not fair. And so I remember sitting in a meeting and they, you know, and it was a nonprofit, which, you know, was basically profiting off of, you know, folks of color. Yeah. And so they're bringing in millions of, you know, they're starting to bring in hundreds of thousands, close to $1 million worth of fund. They're doing all this fundraising, new organization. And they're talking about, how do we help the families? How do we help the families? And I was like, why don't we just divide the million, the 500,000 y'all just came in. Why don't we just give that money to our families? We can pay for their housing. We can, you know, make sure that they have groceries. We can do all these things. And then the mouths just dropped open. And it's like, yes, you don't have an organization if you don't have this demographic. And so I was in meetings just saying things like that. And they would bring in consultants and I would embarrass them because I would call them on their stuff. I would read the charts and just like spell it out. I was like, there was no reason for me not to speak the truth, the elephant that's in the room. I'm always going to call out the elephants of the room. And so they're like, oh, we got to find something on her. We got to get her out of here. You know, I found, and this is how divine works. I went to the copying machine and found a report on me in the copy machine. So I was just like, oh, okay, they're getting ready to get rid of me. Yeah. Then after that, I got the probationary, you know, improvement letter, whatever that was. And I was just like, okay, I see the writing on the wall. And I went in and had a very poignant conversation with the boss. I had a very poignant conversation with the supervisor. And she had a car accident coming in, trying to put me on probation. So Spirit was already like, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do this. And so they didn't know what to do with me. Yeah. You know, and so it was, so I went from probation to getting an award 2 weeks later. I was just like, y'all got to make up your mind. Like, do you want me? Do you not want me? Oh, you want to know what I know. Uh-huh. You're working with these kids and I can tell you, I can go straight to the ancestral root of their family and tell you how to help them. They wanted that information, but they didn't want me there giving it. And they also didn't want me calling out the elephants in the room. Yeah. And so that's when I decided that I can't work in this realm of reality. Even when I put an application out, the universe is like, no, you're not doing that. Because I can't operate in that realm. Yes. Because people don't want you to speak the truth. They don't want you to know who you are. And they don't want you to walk into a space and not have them supervise you or parent you or do whatever it is they're going to do. And it's like, no, I can't. I'm not going to bow. You know, as Audre Lorde said, I'm not going to make myself smaller. Yes. So it's like, if you can't do this, then it just can't be done. I'm here to help you. I'm here to work with you. I'm happy to share this information with you. I'm happy to help these families, but I'm not going to let you oppress them. I'm not going to let you have people in the tears writing checks for you because you're using their trauma and their stories to invest into your business. Right. And then you're behind their back smiling and showing us how much money you just pulled in from that last meeting. Right. And so, yeah, so it's like, for me, it's like, I know even when I try to apply, the universe is just like, we're not even looking at your application. Why did you click that? You know? And so, yeah. So at some point it's like, I know that I can't. And I know that most folks are not willing to hear the truth and to really step up in transparency that they claim they have and really own up to how much they're profiting, you know, off of people's lives. And it's sad to see and to witness, but it's like, I won't be a part of it. And so, and sometimes I think maybe I'm just placed there to speak those truths out and to let them know other people see what's happening. But yeah, I don't fit. Yeah. And I'm not trying to fit. And so I'm really at a take it or leave it at this point, and know that I will eat. I will always have shelter, and, you know, I'll always have my needs met. And so, yeah, but I'm ready to thrive, and I'm ready to go to that next level. So
next level, baby.
Next level. Yeah. I'm with you too, sister.
Yeah.
I don't fit either. But I've been knowing that for a long time because my mother didn't fit. Since I've known her, she's worked for herself. Okay. And I just start noticing, my mother is like a revolutionary. She speaks her truth all the time. She doesn't work for anybody. And I have some of that in me, actually, my other two sisters as well. But I knew right away, I could see, like you said, see the game, hear what they're thinking. And I'm like, okay. Actually, I started using that in my practicing of law, you know, knowing when to go up to the judge. And you know what? But that's part of our roots, because our ancestors, okay, we're all empaths, but they were so sensitive, they had to know when to approach massa and not to be killed. So they had to tune in and tap in and feel this is not a good time, right? How do you think Harriet Tubman got those people out?
That's exactly what came to mind.
Tapping into that. And we have that. Same thing. So I know I don't fit, and I don't care because I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
You can see, when you can see it, it's kind of like, you know, that movie that, what's that Scientology man? That short guy. Oh, I can't think of his name. He did the movie where he could pull the future or pull whatever. And then when a crime was being created. I forgot something reports. I forgot the thing, but that's what, sometimes I get vision of stuff and I get this knowing, clear knowing, which I have, just clear knowing. You don't know how you know it or whatever. Right. You just know.
You already know.
You already know. And I just sit back. Like, people, I so much don't fit in. I didn't vote. Okay. I didn't vote in the presidential election because I'm not doing this lesser of two evil stuff. And I see all the stuff going on and I'm like, no, I'm a watcher. I'm a way shower. And my part of being a way shower is showing people another way where you don't buy into the narrative. Okay. And knowing that we're in the midst of evolutionary initiations, and whoever's president will have shit to do with it. Okay. Yes, their energy. Trump was the great awakener. He had to be for all this stuff to come up. Okay. But Biden is not a savior. Okay. And this goes into another thing. Our community, Lord, our community loves to promote and support people who won't even give them a crumb. And time again, history has shown that. So I'm not saying anything they don't know. right? I can see it. We all can see it. Every time you lend your support, you get nothing, nothing, but still you're relying on the, we're too great to still be enslaved, and to be relying on other people, feed us, clothe us, house us, right? We are divine beings. What are you
Right.
doing? And my mother taught me that. She said, follow God, not man. God feeds you, not man. God clothes you, not man. And we're so full, we claim we're so full of this faith, right?
Yeah.
So full of this. Well, believe in your faith. Believe in your
Yeah.
faith, because it's all coming down,
It's all
right?
coming down.
Everything that is false is being torn down. People are like, oh, don't say that. No, no, I'm a truth teller. We Sagittarians, right, D? Truth tellers. It's all coming down. I'm not afraid. I think it's comical, actually, because I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it, but I'm
Yeah.
also feel grief and sadness for
Yeah,
people
for sure.
who
Good.
who
Yeah,
are,
and I think people, yeah,
who are not there.
yeah,
Yeah. That
yeah,
prepared it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good thing. I think, the coming down is, it ebb and flow, right? It's
Yeah,
coming down, but it's for the purpose of, being rebuilt, but in different ways. It's like that flow, that kind of thing that happens with the waves in the ocean. It comes in, it goes back out, it comes in. And I think, you touched on something. I really do think you're right. Like, we have to stop this sort of like, this and that,
yes,
and it's not even this and that within ourselves, it's this and that out there, and like we have, that's like just the most useless place we can put our energy is out there with the this and the that, the right and the wrong, the good and the bad.
yeah,
It's within here. It's within here. It's like, let's develop this awesome thing that's within us and let that radiate out. Let that do the work. Let the energy do the work, and let us just stop actioning, because every time we action out there without tapping in with the energy first, you see what we do. We create
yeah,
a mess. So it's like, like we're just, but we're so practiced in actioning, and we're so practiced in looking outward. This gift of sight has like a double thing. It allows us to have pleasure, to see things and enjoy things, but it also seduces us into thinking that what we see is what is.
right.
This, it's like, yeah, like, and again, to come to a place where that there isn't this sort of tug of war happening. It's all in spirit, it's in energy, it's in vibration. We have to know that we are energy first. We're
Yeah.
energy first, and anything else after.
Yes,
And if we can get right with that energy space and grow a relationship with that, and build a connection with that and what's around us, like, it's so much freer too. It just
yeah,
feels so much more delicious. It's more pleasurable. It's like, but we've, as humans, we've been practicing, efforting and actioning out in the world, and we think, like, that's where it is. It's like it's like success versus fulfillment.
yeah,
It's like all these external things. So yeah, for what it's worth, I think, if nothing else, right, if people can't find people to work on stuff, or they don't know where to start, or they don't know like what we're talking about, just have a moment of quiet. Have a
Yeah.
moment of quiet.
Yeah.
Take off the human outfit and tap into that little place within yourself that is just that space. It's not your physical self. It's not your job. It's not your children. It's not the house you live in. It's not the clothes that's in your closet. It's not the food you're eating. Just tap into that place that is your nothingness.
Yes.
And let it speak to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Woo, 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 woo. Girl,
That.
woo. I felt that. You have me
Yes.
shaking here. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where our truth is.
That's
And
for
it's
sure.
not an idea, it's not a concept. I did a post yesterday that literally said that. You know, your truth is not it's not an idea, it's a feeling. It's a feeling. And the only way you can find that feeling is when you just block out everything else. Everything else, because everything else is like, you know, it's all physical, right? It's like all, you know, stuff that you accomplished and things that you have and that you bought, and just tap into that little place that is, you know, that doesn't rely on anything external, and ask it a question, you know, just be still and ask it the next, you know, what you know, like what's happening, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Tap into it. Yeah. Because everything else is what you just said. It's
Yeah.
a concept, right? All this other stuff is a concept.
Yeah.
A mind.
Concept and a construct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. One simple thing to do, suggestions, you gave a great suggestion, just stop and be still and tap into that, which goes into being present, but also seeing life as this. I see things as this is a movie in front of me, right? I'm a spiritual being. This is a movie in front of me, and I'm the watcher. I'm the observer of it. And having this idea of it's just Zen Buddhism has this idea that our situations and things that happen, this is just information. You don't have to be attached to it. You don't have to reject it. You know, you don't have to do anything. It's just information, and observe it.
Yeah.
Okay, right? Because when we are, Gabeta talked about, when we are in trauma, which anger, fear, grief, sadness, all of that frustration, when we're in that state, our frontal lobe does not work, right? Frontal lobe does not work. You cannot make conscious decisions,
right?
You can't speak from a conscious, loving place. You just can't. So you have to be centered, work on those things, and it doesn't happen overnight. I'm 53 years old. I've been on this spiritual path, oh my God, for a long 20 years, long time, right? Just going through things. But if you keep practicing, because we practiced what already exists, we practiced that long enough.
Right. Let's pick another practice.
Let's pick another practice.
Yeah.
You can get there. You can get and let go of your old peanuts.
Yeah.
Right? We're holding on to these old peanuts, and we think this is all we have. This is all we're going to get. That false idea of scarcity and lack. You have to let the old peanuts go for the fresh peanuts, meaning you have to let the old ideas and the belief go. I read this book called the visionary, the warrior, the healer, and the teacher. And I'm like, okay, I'm a healer, teacher, warrior, got that. When I got to visionary, it said a visionary lets go of positionality. And I was like, oh, wow. Yes, because I had some positions that I was hanging on to. And when I let those positions go, smooth, in the flow, in alignment, right? We have to let go of these positions. And there's so many. Religion, right? Position. Spirituality, you can be open, but there are people who are also saying they're practicing spirituality and they have positions.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of your positions, your positionality. Let it go. Black people, we have to let go of so many of our positions that we need chicken and chitterlings and pig feet, and that's our food. That's a position, right? Positions about color, light skin, black, dark skin. Those are positions. You understand? That's programming, right? All this stuff is programming. What does television do? It's programming you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we get there?
How do we get there, right? It's a process. It's a process, but I think it starts with a coming to an understanding, or even if you don't understand it, but you come to a place where you're like, okay, you look around and you're like, is this working for me? Am I am I in a place where I am feeling my joy? Is this working for me? And if it's not, then to be able to say, can I imagine it being a different way? Because it's one thing to say, and I work with a lot of people that, I say, like, well, like, what do you want? People are not even aware so much of what they want, but they know what they don't want. They know a lot about what they don't want, right? But to ask somebody to like really feel into that space, into that space of what they want, like, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? And start there. I think that is probably, take the mind from where it is, look around, be like, okay, is this working for me? If it's working for you, I say go for it, right? Like, if you're feeling like you are at your peak and you are rocking it in every aspect of your life, you're good. Then just keep rocking it, right? And that's going to unfold also. But if you feel like, I have a sneaking feeling that I came here for something a little better. Like, when I decided to come into this physical experience, I'm feeling like there was something more. And let that be your guide. Let that be your guide. If you feel there's something more, then there is. And then you can start working towards, like, little bits every day, right? Like, okay, what can I do for myself today that will make me feel a little bit better? It's all about, feeling better, feeling better. It's not some big, thing. Like, one day you wake up and boom, life is all like, wonderful. But you start the little things and you start nourishing yourself while keeping that vision of knowing that you are moving towards something different and better that you want.
Beta.
Delia, you're hitting the nail all on the head. I hear you. Yeah, I think that, like, there's so much undoing. There's so much unraveling. Mm-hmm. It's like figuring out what your core is. Like, you have to go back to what is your core? What is your foundation? What's the truth and untruth of yourself? Right? Because we buy into so much of who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to act. Like, how do you get back to, like, the truths and untruths of yourself? Right? So that's sort of undoing and everything you've bought into who you're supposed to be. Because it starts little. I see it at birth when I'm out. The parents already start who this child is going to be. And so sometimes there's not room to expand outside of that. And then you have to have imagination. You have to be able to, like, envision who you are. Like, you're talking about visioning. Envision who's it that you want to be. Like, who are you? Like, if you took all the limitations that you've placed on you or that society's placed on you, like, once you strip that away, who do you want to be? Like, what do you want to be? How do you want to move in the world?
Yeah.
I always answer that with ease. Like, how do I move with ease? I know how to do the hard stuff, right? I can do the hard stuff all day. Like, what does a life with ease look like? And like, yeah, like, can I embrace that, right? So there's that also that receptivity.
Exactly.
I know what I'm asking for. I have to be available to receive that. I have to be available to step out and take the risk to create that life that I want to have. Yeah. And without fear in creating. I remember I used to teach and ask my students, this is when I was reading The Big Leap, without limitation, what does your life look like? And they couldn't, like a lot of them couldn't answer. And I said, okay, well, let's start with something everybody wants. Let's just start with money. Without limitation, how much money do you want to make or have, right? In a year. And without fail, there would only be 1 or 2 students in the class that would say $1 million or $1 billion. Right. And I would use like a pen as an example. I'd be like, okay, so say you, of course, now they exist, right? So say you create a pen and you can record your voice on it and you can attach it to the computer and everything you said gets printed out. And even this idea alone is worth $1 billion. They were like, wow. I was like, yeah, an idea. Can you imagine just one of those little ideas in your head is worth something? Now multiply that into who you are, right, and what you bring to the world and how you move in the world and what you know how to do or how you inspired someone, or, you know, you could have even just saved somebody's life because you told them, hey, don't pick me up yet. And there was a car accident, right, you know? And so like, yeah. So to get people to even think outside of the limitations of their comfort. Right. And that's even with positive things. I mean, if you think of even, oh, that's a nice outfit. Oh, this thing. Oh yeah, I got it at Goodwill on it had a purple tag on it that was 50% off. Right? You couldn't just take the compliment and say, right. So just receptivity, or someone walked up to you and said, hey, here's $1,000. Just, you know, thanks for smiling. No one has smiled at me today. Yep. You know, you just don't know what you're bringing. And sometimes what you're bringing is life. Yeah. And so like, for me, it's like, those things are important, you know, the undoing, the envisioning, the, you know, imagination and creating the life that you want to live, because I always say it's available. If anybody else can have that, you can have that. Joy, you can have that. Peace, you can have that. Financial, you know, I don't even want to say stability, thriving financially, you can have that. Anything you want, you can have. Can you receive it? Yeah. And often we're so busy, at least I used to be so busy giving. It was difficult for me to receive. And it wasn't until I was like, ooh, I got a problem with receptivity. Let me look that up. That I started learning like that importance. It's reciprocal. Yes. Receptivity. Yes. And so if you're just giving, then you're empty, right? Yeah. And so it's like, we have to learn how to even undo that and know that we are worthy. Yes. Because we're divine. So
we're divine.
Not to
right. I'm going to throw one more thing out, then I'm going to ask you you can speak to it if you like, and then I'm going to ask you to tell us where people can contact you and what you're doing. But I want to throw out all of that, and something just came through me which said, I have to say this. As a community, we have to stop blaming white people.
Yes, I agree.
We create our reality. We create what's in our world, okay? Stop blaming white people. We are divine beings, right? We can create what we want with our thoughts, with our feeling, with our deeds, thought, word, deeds. The moment when I stopped buying into, subscribing to that narrative that white people control everything in my life, I was free, right? I'm like, no, they don't control, I control that. The divine and I work together to create this. they don't have anything to do with it. Yes, they may use their will to try to stop me or that, but when I'm in alignment, you can't stop that.
You can't stop it.
You can't stop that. Blame is low vibration.
It is.
Right? And it's a victim mentality.
Yeah.
Yes. Say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not in the stock market. You know, something happens and people, oh, the stock market, oh, it's going to get this way, this way. I'm like laughing at people, or, you know, oh, if Biden doesn't win this, or if this doesn't happen, this. And I'm like, no, I don't buy into those narratives. I'm cool.
Yeah. Right?
As I go within, I focus on my path, me staying in alignment. And even during the pandemic, where people this and that, it's all coming in abundance, abundance. I've had someone pay my groceries in line because I smiled at them, like Beta. I've had someone walk up to me and said, I got a message from God. God says you toiled long and hard. Here's $1,000 cash. I've had people do that, right? And that wasn't because I'm blaming other people because my life is a certain way. That's because I was in alignment, centered, not blaming.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not to say, right? Because I know people go like, what? Like, what? You can't, like, what? Then we forget. And it's like, it's not to say that what happened didn't happen, right? So it's not just, it's like, whichever world you choose to live in, you have to live with those rules, right? So if you choose to live in the world of victim and blame, then you have to live with those rules that come with that. So it's not to say, that there hasn't been, a lot of trauma and stress from the way that Black people came to this country and, the years after. We're not negating that at all.
Exactly.
We're simply saying that now, where you are right now, in order to move forward into a place of feeling better in your life, victimhood and blaming are not two of the energies that you can create that life from.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally, y'all are on it. I totally agree. And it's that chemical thing, right? That blame does. And it also takes off the responsibility for yourself to be anything else, because you're so burdened, you're so victimized. And I have somebody in my life who I'm always having this conversation. I'm tired of having that conversation with, actually. But it's like, you cannot live in that victimhood. It sucks the wind out of your life.
Yeah.
And if you're always waiting for someone else to give you permission to shine and be your greatest self, guess what? Masters weren't back there freeing folks because,
right?
Like,
okay, you leave today. You leave today.
I don't need those crops. The money you're gonna bring me, the wealth you're gonna bring my family. But that's like the reality of it, is like you cannot stay in that place,
right? Because
it's depressive.
Yes.
It causes you to grieve the losses, the lives, the financial, all of that thing. Like we know all of that. If we don't figure out a future forward, we're just gonna be like in this place of immobility. Yeah, or treading the same thing over again. We have to find our way out. But one of the things that like I started thinking about, and it's funny because it's about the time with the nonprofit, is that there are so many myths that we've bought into around whiteness. It's just not true. And folks can argue me down, and I'm okay. I'll go on record saying that in many ways, I don't think that white privilege is real in a way that I think that white fragility is real. And so there are well-meaning white folks. If they had that power and that privilege, why hasn't the system shifted? Why haven't we found balance in some places?
Well, that's a whole other conversation I think we need to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
because
And I
that is
mean,
so full. Like,
but
yeah, you said that and I was like, woo, that
yeah,
is a full one. We need to have a conversation about that
we
because this
do.
will take us into tomorrow.
No, it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah.
true. It's so
It will take us in tomorrow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That
we
is
have to
great.
deconstruct it all. We just have to deconstruct it all.
yeah,
We have to
yeah.
deconstruct it all. And I wanted to say this, and you guys can't speak to this because this is good. This is good though. But the people, the woman who paid my groceries in Whole Foods because I smiled at her, and I asked her, "Why are you doing this?" She says, "Because you smiled at me." And the man that gave me the $1,000, and the many people who've helped me on my journey when I was homeless, that gave me places to live, stay, they were all white. I
Yeah.
even had a guy come up to me and he said, "Don't take this the wrong way, but I love you. Can I have a hug?" And he says, "It's not sexual or anything. I just feel the love in you." And I said, "Yeah," I gave him a hug. White man. So it's not about the concept of white. It's not.
Like,
It's vibration. It's
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
We're all spiritual beings, and that privilege. So many, we've all bought into these ideas. I was thinking about that. We all, even white people, have bought into these ideas, right? But
And it hurts them also.
the systems that we complain about, we are participants in the system.
A Gemini.
Yeah, we agree. Yeah, 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 yeah. We agree. We do this. Head nodders. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, we all have privilege in different ways.
For sure.
I really do. I think every single human being have privilege in different ways. I think the white privilege, it's deeper than what we think it is, I think, or what we've been kind of putting it up to be. But we all have privilege, as me living in this country as an American, I have privilege that I didn't have, living in Grenada. So, I think it's a whole other kind of thing. And I do agree that there are people who are in alignment and there are people who are not. You can put
Agreed.
any other thing on it. They're black, they're white, they're gay, they're not gay. It's like none of that, matters. There are people, they're Democrats, they're Republicans. No, there are aligned people and there are people that are out of alignment.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I see like all the stereotypes. I'm always looking at these YouTube videos of these genius children, and they're Hispanic and they're black and they're this and I said, people don't see that this has all been a program, right? Because you have all this, and I tell people this. I've told my white friends this. I said, you are doing your children a disservice if you teach them the narrative that they are superior, because in the real world, in the real reality, the true is, we are all spiritual beings. And the color thing, superiority thing, is something we made up. It's not real. So your kids are going to go out in the real world and they're going to find a black boy who is a genius, and then they're going to start feeling insecure about themselves and want to fight because they don't understand, because their parents taught them we're superior.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, because the divine doesn't make superior and inferior.
Right.
Humans do. Humans do that shit.
So true. So true. We're so foolish as humans. It's like we came here and we didn't have enough to do to focus on ourselves and grow an awesome world, that we decided we're just going to create all this like nonsense to keep ourselves entertained, And it's like, no, the entertainment is in here. It's in here. That's where the entertainment, that's where the juice is, that's where the pleasure is, that's where the joy is. It's not in these constructs. It's not, and, for what it's worth, I'm like, really, people, let's just give it a little break. You know, let's just decide we're going to give it a
We
little
all,
break and try something different.
How
What
do
the
we,
heck,
how
right?
do we move
Like I
forward?
left my island, you know,
Yeah.
at 19 and came to the US. I'm like, let me just check this out, see what this is. It's like the same thing, just willing to just reach beyond what we know.
mm,
Because what we know is like, again, it's like old news. It's old news, what we know. Let's just like a little expansion. Get curious about this thing that we're calling life and see where it takes us.
Uh, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way to move forward. Gabeta, how do we move forward? Give us a couple things how to move forward. Then Delia, then
Oh, I think I gave mine already. The
okay,
beta and then you.
Gabeta, go ahead. How do we
I,
move forward and rise up?
it's all about the self. It all comes down to the self. It's like you can't be, I mean, you know, you can be community, but you need the people in the community to work on self.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we all go forward. And folks have to really know themselves. They have, you know, you need to go through the stuff that's cool and the stuff that's not cool, the things that you didn't do right, the people you hurt. You know, how are you going to do better? How are you going to live better? You know, it's like if you're going to be your higher self, then you got to start with the lower self sometimes.
Mm.
You know, you can't bypass that,
Nope.
that work.
No
And so
bypassing.
we have to look at ourselves and be honest with who and what we see. And not in a critical way on, you know, on this or that. It's like, no, in a way that explores those histories and those parts of you that you can imagine being different, and then go in and do the work. And sometimes the work is alone. Sometimes the work is closure. Sometimes we can't get closure. So what do you do with that information? And so you may have to have the conversation with yourself that you want to have with someone else so you can let some stuff go.
Right.
You know, but like at some point you have to deal with the self. For me, that's the only way, and has always been the only way forward. And even with that, it's like sometimes that working on self automatically splits off people who are not willing or ready to do the work. You know, and I don't step in the world like, yeah, I'm better. No, I step in the work like I've done some hard work. You know, and I pay, you know, those dues in doing those work and that work. And I've had the difficult conversations, right? Even Gay Hendricks says something like, you know, you got to be willing to get into at least 15 minutes of, you know, uncomfortable conversation to get to that thing. But there has to be like a desire. My add-on is there has to be a desire to get to that thing. Yes. Right. And so, and if we can get to that thing, then we can get to that other thing together. So, but we have to evolve. We have to come out of the realm of just what this material world offers us, because it's not enough. It's not enough. And so we have to do the internal work. We have to figure out how to connect to creator, to source, to the universe, right? We forget that we're on a planet. We are on a planet rotating, you know, through the cosmos. And sometimes we forget that we are on a planet. We always, you know, looking at, you know, Star Wars and all this other stuff. It's like we are on a planet. And so like we are beings. And as some of my teachers said, like we are the most violent beings out there in the universe.
Yes.
And so we have to stop hurting each other, you know, and we have to figure out like how to love in a, you know, I remember my great grandmother saying, love everybody. I was like, oh, that's easy, until I went to preschool. I didn't even get to kindergarten before I realized, wow, there's some really hateful folks out here. Like, you gonna let me down off the seesaw or what? Stop calling me names. You know, so you know, you get it really early, but it's like at some point we have to like stop it, you know, and then stop like raising other generations to do what we did, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of love in the world, and love in the warrior way. And so I think that we can love our way through a lot of the difficult stuff if we can come to a place of like understanding and compassion, for ourselves and for each other, because we all have bad days. We all have bad hair. You got hair or not hair, you still have a bad hair day. So, you know, it's not right. You know, and so it's like, it's really important to just have, you know, ways of being forgiving of ourselves and again of other people.
Yeah.
And being in a place of, you know, I'll go back to receptivity, you know, too, to receive that love and compassion, and to be tender with ourselves and others.
We are a people of love and compassion and kindness.
We are at our core.
We really are. And I'll end what I want to say just by saying that be aware that we are, as a community, out of alignment with the God we say we love.
Mm.
And we have to return, not go back, but return to our roots. We have to become aligned with the God we say that we love. And that first, for me, like you said, Beta, is mastery, or at least as much as you can do, of self. Self discovery, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to end on that note. Delia, where can people find you? Do you have any events coming up?
Find me at mindsetonpurpose.com. We have a new curriculum that's just out. We're working with kids from 7 to 14. It's called Learning Without the Noise. And yeah, I don't have anything happening for adults anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, actually, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing maybe soon. But check out mindsetonpurpose.com. It'll all be on there.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sister Gabeta. Where can people find you, and do you have anything coming up?
I do. I have a book that I'm working on birthing, and I'm co-authoring it. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That's coming. The easiest way to find me is Freedom in Sound, freedominsound.com. And through Gabeta Acupuncture, I am offering 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month programming for folks who are looking at vibrating at a higher level and learning how to meditate, using sound therapy, acupressure, nutrition. I'm also working with birthing people who are trying to be healthy in this period of time. And then I also assist with birth coaching virtually and with postpartum care. And so I love to follow people for 15 weeks to 60 days after birth to just really help them get to where they're trying to be, and to make sure that everything's okay. And though that's how folks can find me.
Okay. And you said book, and which made me remind me that Delia, you have a book or something you put together.
Yeah, it's an interactive journal. It's on the website also for adults.
On the website. And I know I'm supposed to be ending, but I thought about something you said to me, which I thought, Delia, that was so brilliant in our conversation about, and we won't have another conversation about this, but you can say something if you would, but we were talking about how the collective is experiencing, going through a weak immunity, hence the COVID-19, that as a collective, we have a weak immunity, hence the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So we were talking.
It's all about vibration, right? It's like we've been moving in a direction that is away from the best of who we are.
Mm.
And so when you move in that direction, like, right, like all these things, these are just symptoms of the energy just showing us that we are moving away from the best of who we are. And we cannot continue on that path because there is nothing down that path.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amen. Okay. Gabeta, would you like to add to that or?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for holding this space. It's been beautiful to talk with you both and whoever's out there listening. And I hope that folks found gemstones and pearls in those conversations and will really, look at themselves in ways that they can, as someone said this morning, come out of, mediocrity and step into your excellence, and then find, communities who are vibrating high, because we need that.
We need that. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, thank you so much, sisters. Thank you so much. I've had so much fun. I can go on because this is just deliciousness,
So good. So
for
good.
me, because I live like a hermit, but this is great for me. Thank you so much. I
Thank
honor you both and love you, my sisters. Thank you.
Meet you, Gabeta.
So nice meeting you and sharing space.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.